Join the Raiders Report family. The reason why we've been the #1 most watched Raiders channel on YouTube for the last 8 years is because we're so much more than a YouTube channel. We're a community. I called out Raiders beat reporters the other day, and the reason why they heard us is because that us word. It's not just me, it's us. And if you're a fan of the Raiders, I promise you, we are louder together. Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, more rumors that Pete Carroll will be fired after this season. My name is Mitchell Renz. You guys are watching the Raiders Report, and essentially when the team's 2-10, I try to wake up every single day and I'm like, I can't always be the Grinch saying Pete Carroll stinks this, blame Geno Smith for that. This is the worst Raiders team I've ever seen. I gotta find that glass half full. So when I see reports, and I know that I have been out the past few days. I've been battling a little bit of an illness, been battling a little bit of a sickness. So when I saw some rumors from Ian Rapoport, but also I did speak to multiple Raiders reporters yesterday, and one of those Raiders reporters threw me a little bit of a nugget, and I'm going to tell you what that nugget is here on today's program. So Ian Rapoport a few days ago said that Pete Carroll is on the hot seat, and Rap Sheet is one of these guys, just like Schefter, just like Fowler, I think Albert Breer. They don't throw stuff out just for the sake of throwing it out there. And, you know, with everything that has happened around this show, I'd say in the last 24 hours, I had a lot of people saying, well, Mitch, you're not actually in that Raiders room. How do you get these inside scoops? The same way that a guy like Ian Rapoport does. You got sources. And when you have sources inside of the building, I think people need to listen to what these NFL insiders are saying because, let's face it here, the Raiders are clearly looking for answers at a head coach. And when you see all the finger pointing that's going on right now with Pete pointing at Chip Kelly, Chip Kelly's team pointing at Pete Carroll, with Tom McMahon getting fired sooner or later, that point, those three fingers that are pointing back probably say Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, and Brennan Carroll. But you all know that I love this saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. So when I see a report from Ian Rapoport, and then when I show you at the very end of today's show what a Raiders beat reporter told me yesterday, again, there's just so much smoke right now that it's going to be bon voyage to Pete Carroll. So be real with me. Will the Raiders keep Pete? Will Pete Carroll be fired after this season? Type F for fire, type K for keep. My answer after this YouTube ad break. The reason why I'm going to say it's F for fire is because where the whole Pete Carroll getting fired conversation started compared to where they are now, there has to be so much conversation on a weekly, hell, I almost wonder if there's conversations on a daily basis about what the Silver and Black are going to do, because the people that are really loud in Mark Davis's ear, they didn't want to hire Pete Carroll to begin with. You got to remind yourself, Pete Carroll was the third option for the Raiders this offseason. They wanted Mike Vrabel. They wanted Ben Johnson. And the fact that this organization is as lost as what they are right now, it doesn't make any sense to bring back a 74-year-old head coach, because the reason why I also think that he's going to get fired, Pete said that he has no plans of stepping down after this season. And I'm sure Pete doesn't want to have to step down after the season. He's got 2 years left on his contract, $15 million per year. When you look at a lot of the reports out there, it was looked at as it was going to be a 3-year, $45 million deal. But I'll just keep throwing this up here because I'll just keep saying it. The reason why Pete Carroll is going to be one and done, the Geno Smith loyalty. It's disgusting. We want to see a different quarterback. I actually think Pete Carroll would have a better shot of saving his job if he benched Geno Smith. You look at his staff loyalty. Sooner or later, you can't point the finger at anybody else. Sooner or later, you got to point your finger at your Nepo kids and how bad this offensive line is. But anything that has to do with Pete Carroll, it's got to go. And that's just the truth. You look at the front office disconnect. It's been reported how many flipping times that the front office and Pete Carroll are not seeing eye to eye. You look at the rest of the season. Does anybody here think that this team's going to win another football game? I know I definitely do not. And then the final reason here is, again, he's 74 years old. You cannot sell your fan base on a 74-year-old head coach that planned on winning this season, that failed in the offseason, that failed in the regular season. You got to get this thing going in the right direction. All of those reasons are why Pete Carroll is going to be fired after this season. But here's the cherry on top. And I get it. Some people are going to believe beat reporters. You don't have to believe all the beat reporters. I'm just going to tell you it like this. The beat reporter that told me what I'm about to show y'all on this show, I think is somebody that a lot of y'all do respect and do think like, yeah, that guy's got some good ties. And he's also somebody that, again, doesn't just throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks. He's never been a puppet for the Raiders organization, and I don't think he ever will be a puppet for this organization. But after my conversation with him over the past 24 hours, when he saw how frustrated I was in that Pete Carroll presser, for him to say what he did to me and for him to have the conversation that we have had over the past, again, 24 hours, I believe what he's telling me. Because I'm hearing the exact same thing, and Rappaport, Schefter are all hearing the exact same thing. But the new Pete Carroll rumors, I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss them. Also, you're not going to want to miss getting started with our sponsor, PrizePicks, if you haven't already, because this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, and it's the holiday season, the best time of the year. Bowl games, basketball matchup, playoff pushes. And speaking of those playoff pushes, the lineup that I'm going to show y'all, it's not my lineup. I'm going to show you Jeremy Chuggs' lineup because, man, oh, man, do I wish the Raiders were playing in a meaningful game at this point of the season. And you know what? I actually think I care more about the Texans beating the Chiefs this week than I do the Raiders and Broncos game because I don't think there's a shot in hell that the Raiders are going to take down the Denver Broncos. So the lineup that you see right now here up on screen, we wanted to be able to show you the difference between a flex play, between a power play, and since Houston's going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, guess what? Will Anderson, 0.25 sacks? Hell yeah. Give me the more on that. Jaden Higgins, y'all know I loved him coming out of Iowa State. Give me the more on those receiving yards, and I think he's going to end up finding pay dirt. I'm going to be real. This is actually the first time I'm looking at this lineup, and I freaking love it. The Mahomes passing yards, I don't mind it being the less option because I would say right now the hottest defense in the National Football League is the Houston Texans, and man, oh man, they're coming after quarterbacks left and right. And Chuggs is telling me it might snow. Oh, boy. Hell, I might just want to do that game. Chuggs will be live for that game if anybody wants to hang out with him. But I know how lost this season has been, and I'm just going to tell y'all, join millions of users, sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app out there, download the PrizePicks app today, use code CLNS, get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right, and I don't think I'm the only person up here. Like, I would rather, I don't want to say I'd rather the Texans win than the Raiders win, but I actually think I might. Texans beat the Chiefs, they might be eliminated from the playoffs. If the Raiders beat the Denver Broncos, I feel like we're right back in our situation that we were in last year. Now, sure, it'd be nice to always beat Denver, and I'm sick and tired of 10 straight AFC West losses. But I actually think I would be happier if the Texans beat the Chiefs compared to if the Raiders beat the Broncos. If you want to yell at me for that, you go ahead. You can yell at me for that. But I feel like I'm at that point because of how bad Pete Carroll is. So let's get the smiles back on some faces because, again, I think Pete Carroll is going to get fired. So I want to give, again, a little bit more background information on why I received this quote that y'all are about to receive. And it's because I called out Raiders beat reporters on Monday for terrible questions in that Pete Carroll presser. And I had multiple beat reporters reach out to me telling me, hey, man, our questions are not pre-screened. If you did not see the video that I did, please go check it out. But one of the very well-respected insiders had some interesting things to say about Pete Carroll. And if you didn't see my video that I did, here it was. It was a basically what the F that I just watched. And what's funny is I actually had a beat reporter agree with me saying that the Pete Carroll pressers have been a waste of time. That's a pretty mind-blowing thing that an actual Raiders beat reporter told me, but it's the truth. So I had the reporters respond to me, and I put out the questions that I would have asked Pete Carroll during that presser. And in the back and forth that I had with this one Raiders beat reporter, and if you're the beat reporter and you watch this show, if you want me to give your name on this, I will more than happily do it. I just don't ever know who wants their name out there, who doesn't want their name out there, because I don't care what anybody says. If there's one thing that I did learn from talking to multiple beat reporters is you do have to tiptoe around the Raiders PR, and you have to tiptoe right now around who says what with Pete Carroll, because if you say something bad to Pete and to Gino and to his team, you might have limited access to being able to do your job at the highest level. Luckily, nobody's going to limit me, and that's why you should subscribe to the Raiders Report. So here's what this Raiders beat reporter told me on Pete Carroll getting fired after this season. At this point, it's painfully obvious this is a flawed roster. There's going to be substantial change this offseason, and nothing is off the table. There's not much anyone can do other than try to prove they are worth keeping around. That goes for players and coaches. Now, I want you to keep that up there for a second there, Chuggs, because when you read this quote, there's going to be substantial change this offseason, and nothing is off the table. What else could be that substantial change, right? You already fired your special teams coordinator in Tom McMahon. You already fired your offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly. I've said up here on this show, and I've said it multiple times, that I've been told by sources that Patrick Graham is not going to be returning this season. So what other substantial change could happen? I'm actually asking y'all, because to me, the only thing that potentially would be substantial change is either A, you move on from the quarterback, or B, you move on from your head coach. And I think in this situation, it's both. If you move on from Pete Carroll, you're moving on from Geno Smith. And if Geno Smith isn't the quarterback of this team, that means this organization made a decision that said Geno's not good enough to be on this team anymore. And if that's the decision they're being made, you got to look at the money, because the Raiders could keep Geno Smith on this team for $8 million, or you could cut him, and that would end up eating $18 million. So either he's on the team for 8 or he's off the team for 18. If you're an organization and you're moving on from Geno Smith, well, then you obviously should move on from Pete Carroll, because that's the son of a gun that brought him in, traded him, and ended up giving him an extension. So the fact that there's going to be substantial change and nothing is off the table for this Raiders beat reporter, that every single person watching this show right now knows who this person is. Again, I'm not going to put him out there by name, but I guarantee it, if you were to ask Joe Schmo Raider fan who blank is, every person would go, oh, that's one of the top beat reporters for the Las Vegas Raiders. So the fact that they're saying substantial change is coming and nothing is off the table, to me, it's just more smoke to the fire that Pete Carroll is not going to be this team's head coach next season, and thank the freaking Lord. And it's why I've already done multiple videos on the Raiders moving on from Pete. And if you haven't seen my Pete Carroll replacements video, go check it out. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to make new updates, because there's going to be new offensive minds. There's going to be new defensive minds. There's going to be brand new reports. And guess what? If you don't want to miss something wild, join us for our live show today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, because there are some crazy head coach rumors out there. Some are probably going to scare the absolute shit out of you. One name might be one that you want. I don't know. What I do know is you're not going to want to miss our live show, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Good news, sounds like Pete Carroll's going to be gone, which where there's smoke, there's fire. And that's how much smoke there is right now around the Raiders moving on from Pete.